18 months of relentless Babylonian siege reduced Jerusalem to shattered stone foundations. The survivors became subjects within a monitored military zone, living under a foreign administration that occupied every urban corner. Throughout the first 4 chapters of Lamentations, the community remains silent. They absorb the trauma, but they offer no collective voice or liturgical response. Instead, a mentor figure and the personified city of Zion carry the vocal weight, urging the survivors to break their silence and speak directly to Yahweh. In chapter 5, verses 8 through 16, the congregation finally responds to that call, bringing their own corporate prayer to God. This passage follows a systematic psychological progression. To move toward restoration, the community must walk through 3 stages: objective grievance, internal grief, and finally, theological guilt. The progression begins with a catalog of objective grievances, detailing the daily harassment intrinsic to Babylonian rule. Ancient Near Eastern societies operated on a rigid hierarchy. Elders and princes occupied the apex, while slaves were confined to the base. Verse 8 describes how the occupation inverted this pyramid. Minor foreign officials, contemptuously labeled slaves, now possess the authority to dictate terms to the Judeans. This inversion triggered an economic collapse. Verse 9 details how farmers risked their lives against Babylonian patrols, the sword in the wilderness, simply to harvest crops in their own fields. Families retreated behind city walls to avoid these roaming military detachments, a move that effectively manufactured an urban famine. Verse 10 records the physical toll of this starvation, though the diagnosis depends on a specific linguistic choice. While older translations read black as an oven, recent scholarship identifies the Hebrew root as hot or feverish. The text describes the fever and disease resulting from prolonged malnutrition. The Babylonians weaponized the physical environment, forcing the population into a state of total vulnerability. Beyond the general famine, the occupying forces targeted specific demographics to inflict maximum cultural degradation. Verse 11 explicitly records the sexual assaults committed against women in Zion and the surrounding towns, an act that reinforced the helplessness of the Judean men, who could no longer protect them. Civic leaders faced public humiliation. Verse 12 describes elite elders and princes being strung up by their hands as a mocking display of their lost authority. The stone gatehouse once served as the center of civic life and justice. Under the occupation, the elders who governed there were displaced, effectively erasing the city's legal and social center. While the elders lost their power, the young men were conscripted into manual labor, staggering under heavy loads of wood to fuel foreign military operations. Verse 13 notes that these men were forced to grind grain, a domestic task strictly reserved for housewives or household slaves. The Babylonians used this labor to inflict a specific cultural stigma. In times of peace, these men gathered at the city gates to make music. The occupation ended that tradition. By replacing leisure and public engagement with forced labor, the Babylonians halted the transmission of Judean culture. These acts represent a calculated sociological deconstruction, designed to break Judean pride and force psychological surrender. In verse 15, the catalog of external harassment ends. The community pivots from grievance to internal grief. They reach a subjective realization: joy has ceased in their hearts, and dancing has been replaced by mourning. This reality contradicts the typical Hebrew theological trajectory. In Psalm 30, the believer expects God to turn mourning back into dancing. Lamentations 5 documents the total reversal of that pattern, where the joy of the community has withered into a state of mourning. Verse 16 summarizes this loss with a literary symbol: the crown has fallen from our head. Isaiah 28 identifies this crown as a festal garland of flowers and leaves, a mark of innocent celebration, quite distinct from a royal diadem. The withering of this festal garland signifies the death of societal joy. Stripped of external status and internal happiness, the community is forced to look inward. This introspection leads to the final phase, the acknowledgement of guilt in verse 16. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Commentators often suggest that Lamentations 5 contains a contradictory theology regarding who is responsible for the disaster. The perceived paradox exists between verse 7, which blames the ancestors for the exile, and verse 16, which places the blame on the present generation. We see this tension in Ezekiel 18, where Babylonian exiles expressed deep resentment, feeling they were being punished for sins they did not commit. However, the text views sin as a cumulative weight. This timeline from Joshua through Kings shows a continuous history of rebellion that builds until it reaches the breaking point of Jerusalem's destruction. Psalm 106 verse 6 provides the synthesis. Both we and our ancestors have sinned. Intergenerational guilt and personal guilt are part of the same historical threat. The final generation living in Jerusalem faced the fully realized impact of a historical rebellion they actively sustained. By declaring, "We have sinned," the community takes full personal ownership of the disaster. Taking ownership of this failure reorients the community's relationship with their trauma. The people identify Yahweh's deliberate divine discipline as the engine of their collapse, looking past the immediate reality of Babylonian military force. This realization fulfills the mentor's demands for repentance established in chapters 1 and 3. After enduring the siege and the abuses of occupation, the congregation has finally integrated the mentor's interpretation of the disaster. Acknowledging their guilt provides a foundational block beneath the inverted social pyramid. This admission of responsibility creates a stable base for a community that has otherwise lost everything. Only by facing the total deconstruction of their physical world could the community rebuild their spiritual foundation. This confession turns a liturgy of despair into the first step toward restoration.